Today, we're going to explore a very important question. Does marijuana disrupt your sleep? Sleep is one of the most powerful tools we have for restoring our brain and body. It influences learning, memory, hormones, and emotional regulation. Many people use cannabis thinking it improves sleep. The reality is more complex. In this talk, we'll break down what science actually tells us about marijuana's effects on sleep quality, deep rest, and long-term brain health. Marijuana's impact on sleep is often discussed in terms of its ability to reduce sleep latency, which simply means the time it takes for someone to fall asleep. Many people who use marijuana, especially in the form of smoking or ingesting THC-rich products, report that they can drift off much faster compared to nights when they don't use it. This is one of the reasons cannabis is so widely sought after by people dealing with insomnia, stress, or an overactive mind at bedtime. THC, the primary psychoactive compound in marijuana, interacts with the body's endocannabinoid system, a network of receptors and chemical messengers that plays a role in regulating mood, appetite, and sleep. When THC binds to certain receptors in the brain, it can create a sense of calm, reduce mental chatter, and slow down physiological arousal, which makes the transition into sleep feel smoother. This effect can be particularly appealing to those who struggle with racing thoughts, heightened anxiety, or difficulty turning off their minds after a long day. The reduction in sleep latency through marijuana use has also been linked to its sedative-like properties. THC has been shown to decrease the activity of certain neurotransmitters that keep the brain alert and awake. This shift toward relaxation doesn't just happen mentally but also physically, with some users experiencing muscle relaxation and a drop in overall tension throughout the body. For people who often lie awake tossing and turning, these effects can seem like a welcome solution. Moreover, individuals with chronic pain frequently report that marijuana helps them fall asleep faster by reducing pain perception, which would otherwise keep them awake. In such cases, the combination of pain relief and quicker sleep onset can feel like a double benefit. However, the relationship between marijuana and reduced sleep latency is not entirely straightforward. While many report falling asleep faster, this doesn't necessarily mean the sleep they enter is restorative or high quality. In fact, the quicker descent into sleep may sometimes bypass the natural winding down process that the body and brain rely on for healthy sleep architecture. The initial sedation caused by THC is different from the body's natural mechanisms of transitioning into sleep, which involve a balance of hormones like melatonin and adenosine. Over time, relying on marijuana to fall asleep quickly can interfere with these natural signals, leading to a kind of dependency where the brain expects THC in order to shut down efficiently. Another factor to consider is tolerance. The first few times someone uses marijuana for sleep, the effect on reducing sleep latency can be dramatic, but as tolerance builds, the same dose may no longer help the person fall asleep as quickly. This often leads to increased consumption over time, and while the onset of sleep may still be somewhat shortened compared to not using marijuana, the overall efficiency begins to diminish. Users might find themselves needing stronger strains or higher doses, and the perceived benefit of falling asleep faster may come at the cost of altered sleep patterns in other stages of the sleep cycle. Despite these complications, the appeal of reduced sleep latency cannot be overlooked. For someone who has struggled for months or even years with insomnia, the ability to drift off within minutes instead of hours can feel life-changing. The psychological relief alone, knowing that sleep is within reach, can decrease stress levels, which in turn supports sleep further. The sense of control over bedtime that marijuana provides is part of what sustains its popularity as a sleep aid. Nonetheless, this immediate benefit needs to be weighed against the long-term implications, because while falling asleep faster sounds ideal, it may mask underlying issues in sleep quality that emerge with chronic use. When looking at the relationship between marijuana and sleep, one of the most significant findings is its disruption of REM sleep and dream cycles. REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep, is a stage where the brain is highly active and most dreaming occurs. This stage is essential for emotional regulation, memory consolidation, and learning, as well as for maintaining mental health. THC, the main psychoactive compound in marijuana, has been consistently shown to suppress the proportion of time spent in REM sleep. While someone using marijuana might fall asleep more quickly and spend longer in the deeper, non-REM stages of sleep, the trade-off is often a sharp reduction in REM. This means fewer dreams, fragmented dream recall, and a diminished opportunity for the brain to perform its nightly functions of emotional processing and information integration. The suppression of REM is not just about missing out on dreams. REM sleep is critical for resetting neural circuits tied to mood and stress regulation. When REM sleep is consistently reduced, people may notice subtle changes in their emotional stability, such as feeling more irritable, less resilient to stress, or less able to process difficult emotions. Over weeks or months of regular marijuana use, this disruption can compound, leading to greater challenges in mood regulation and cognitive sharpness. Some studies also suggest that REM sleep plays a role in creativity and problem solving, as the brain uses dream states to connect seemingly unrelated ideas. When marijuana limits REM activity, the brain's ability to make those connections is muted, which could subtly influence productivity and innovation over time. One striking observation from people who frequently use marijuana is the drastic increase in dreaming once they stop. This phenomenon, often called REM rebound, occurs because the brain essentially tries to compensate for all the REM sleep it has been missing. During withdrawal, or even after a short break from cannabis use, individuals often report intensely vivid, sometimes overwhelming dreams. These dreams can be emotionally charged and unusually memorable. REM rebound is evidence that marijuana had been suppressing REM for a significant period, and the nervous system is working overtime to restore balance. While this may not seem concerning at first, it underscores how profoundly marijuana use can reshape the architecture of sleep and how dependent the body becomes on its absence or presence. Another aspect of disrupted REM and dream cycles is its potential influence on long-term memory. REM sleep is linked with consolidating emotional and procedural memories, which are crucial for learning and adaptation. By reducing the amount of REM sleep, marijuana indirectly weakens these processes, leaving users with patchier recall and a harder time integrating experiences into long-term memory. This doesn't always present itself as outright memory loss, but rather as a subtle dulling of the richness and detail of memory. People may also feel less emotionally connected to their memories, as the processing that normally happens during dreams is disrupted. For students, professionals, or anyone relying on optimal cognitive performance, this deficit can slowly accumulate, reducing efficiency in learning and adaptation. Dreams themselves are also a window into the unconscious, serving as a form of emotional therapy where the brain rehearses responses to stress or replays significant experiences. When marijuana interferes with this process, it denies the brain one of its natural coping mechanisms. People who use cannabis heavily often report either an absence of dreams or only fragmented glimpses of them. While this might seem like a relief to those with nightmares, especially trauma survivors, the cost is a reduction in the brain's ability to process emotional content naturally. Over time, suppressed REM can contribute to a backlog of unprocessed emotions that manifest in waking life as anxiety, mood swings, or unresolved tension. Long-term use of marijuana is often associated with a decrease in overall sleep quality, even though many people turn to it initially as a way to improve their nights of rest. While the short-term effects may feel beneficial, falling asleep faster, feeling sedated, or experiencing relief from pain or stress, the cumulative impact on sleep architecture is less favorable. Sleep quality is determined not only by how quickly a person falls asleep or how many hours they remain in bed, but by how well the different stages of sleep are distributed across the night. When marijuana is used consistently, it tends to disrupt the natural balance of these stages, leading to sleep that may feel less refreshing and restorative over time. One of the major reasons long-term marijuana use negatively affects sleep quality is the alteration of deep sleep and REM sleep cycles. THC can increase the amount of time spent in slow wave sleep, the deepest stage of REM sleep, which on the surface sounds like a positive effect. However, this often comes at the expense of REM sleep, which is critical for cognitive processing, memory consolidation, and emotional regulation. The imbalance created by enhancing some stages while reducing others produces a kind of distorted sleep profile. Over time, even if someone appears to be sleeping enough hours, they may wake up feeling groggy, less mentally sharp, or emotionally off balance because the full spectrum of restorative processes that normally occur during a healthy night of sleep has been interrupted. Another element in reduced sleep quality is tolerance. When marijuana is used repeatedly, the body becomes accustomed to its effects, requiring higher doses to achieve the same sedative results. This creates a cycle where sleep may initially improve with use, but gradually becomes less reliable as tolerance builds. People often increase their consumption to recapture the original benefit, yet the underlying disruption to sleep cycles remains or even worsens. As a result, they may sleep for a seemingly sufficient duration but still report feeling unrested in the morning. This paradox, using marijuana to sleep, but then experiencing poorer sleep quality, illustrates how long-term reliance on it can undermine the very problem it was meant to solve. The endocannabinoid system itself plays a role in why this happens. This system, which marijuana heavily interacts with, is naturally involved in regulating sleep and wake states. Chronic exposure to cannabinoids, particularly THC, can desensitize or alter the receptors involved, making it harder for the brain to maintain normal sleep rhythms without external stimulation. Over time, this can weaken the body's ability to regulate sleep naturally, leading to a dependence on marijuana just to initiate or maintain rest. The deeper consequence is that sleep without cannabis may feel especially difficult, fragmented, or even impossible, reinforcing the cycle of use. Long-term users also frequently report side effects, such as increased nighttime awakenings and lighter sleep later in the night. While the first half of sleep might come easily with marijuana, the second half can become more restless, with frequent disruptions or early waking. These interruptions fragment the overall sleep experience, preventing a consistent stretch of restorative rest. In addition, the quality of deep sleep itself may be altered as brainwave activity during marijuana-induced slow-wave sleep does not perfectly replicate natural deep sleep. This means that even though users may technically enter deep sleep, the restorative benefits, such as tissue repair, immune system strengthening, and hormone regulation, may not occur at their optimal level. Over months or years of use, these small deficits accumulate. The result is that long-term marijuana users often describe their sleep as shallow, unrefreshing, or unpredictable, even when they rely on cannabis nightly. They may also notice lingering daytime effects such as reduced alertness, slower reaction times, or difficulty concentrating. These symptoms reflect the underlying degradation of sleep quality caused by ongoing interference with natural sleep architecture. The very system of rest that the brain depends on to repair itself each night is compromised, leaving people caught in a loop where marijuana seems necessary for sleep, but the sleep it provides is less and less restorative. Withdrawal from marijuana use often brings with it one of the most challenging sleep-related issues, severe insomnia. People who have been using marijuana regularly, especially over long periods, frequently experience a dramatic change in their ability to sleep once they stop. This is largely due to the body and brain adapting to the presence of THC, which has been artificially influencing sleep cycles. When that influence is suddenly removed, the nervous system struggles to recalibrate, and sleep becomes difficult to initiate, maintain, or experience in a restorative way. This insomnia can be immediate, appearing within the first couple of nights after cessation, and can last for days, weeks, or even longer depending on how long and how heavily the person used cannabis. One of the reasons withdrawal insomnia is so severe is the phenomenon of REM rebound. While marijuana suppresses REM sleep during use, the brain responds to its absence by producing unusually high levels of REM once THC is withdrawn. This often leads to intense, vivid, and sometimes disturbing dreams, which can fragment sleep and cause multiple awakenings throughout the night. People who have gone months or years with very little dream activity suddenly find themselves flooded with overwhelming dream experiences. These dreams can feel emotionally charged, leaving the person feeling unrested even if they manage to stay in bed for a full night. The constant disruption creates a perception of restlessness, where sleep is no longer a refuge, but an unpredictable and sometimes distressing experience. Another layer of insomnia during withdrawal is the return of underlying conditions that marijuana may have masked. Many people use cannabis as a way to quiet anxiety, relieve chronic pain, or manage stress before bed. When marijuana is removed, those same issues return with full force, often making it difficult to fall asleep. Anxiety, in particular, tends to spike during withdrawal, creating racing thoughts and heightened arousal at night, both of which are enemies of restful sleep. Pain that had been dulled by marijuana may reemerge, causing tossing and turning throughout the night. The combined effect of physical discomfort and mental unrest adds to the severity of insomnia and explains why many relapse into cannabis used simply to escape the frustration of sleeplessness. The insomnia experienced in withdrawal is not only about falling asleep, but also about staying asleep. Many report waking up multiple times a night, sometimes every hour, with difficulty returning to rest. This broken sleep compounds fatigue, irritability, and poor concentration during the day. Unlike the sedation that marijuana induces, which often helps people sleep through the night, withdrawal leaves the body hyper-alert. The contrast between the two states can be jarring, and it reinforces the dependency cycle by making cannabis seem like the only reliable path back to consolidated rest. This withdrawal insomnia can also alter a person's relationship with sleep on a psychological level. After repeated nights of difficulty, people begin to anticipate the struggle, creating performance anxiety around bedtime. The very act of trying to sleep becomes stressful, further preventing rest. This psychological overlay adds another barrier to recovery, as the brain starts associating nighttime with frustration and wakefulness. It takes time and consistent effort for the natural sleep systems to reset, and for the mind to rebuild confidence in its ability to sleep without chemical support. For some, this process may involve weeks of poor rest, which feels unbearable compared to the seemingly immediate relief of returning to marijuana use. Ultimately, the severe insomnia linked with marijuana withdrawal highlights how powerfully the drug interacts with natural sleep regulation. What began as a tool to help with sleep eventually rewires the brain's expectations, making it dependent on an external compound. Once that compound is removed, the nervous system is left in disarray, struggling to restore equilibrium. The nights become long, restless, and fragmented, and the fatigue builds into daily life, creating a powerful temptation to resume use simply for the sake of sleeping again. This cycle illustrates not only the short-term disruption of withdrawal, but also the broader consequences of relying on marijuana as a long-term sleep aid. Sleep architecture is the term used to describe the structured progression of sleep stages that the body cycles through each night, and it is this architecture that marijuana disrupts when used over the long term. The ideal pattern includes a healthy balance of light sleep, deep slow, wave sleep, and rapid eye movement sleep, with each stage contributing something unique to physical and mental restoration. Natural sleep architecture ensures that energy is replenished, memories are consolidated, emotions are processed, and the immune system is strengthened. When marijuana is introduced consistently, it alters the proportions of these stages in ways that may seem beneficial in the short term, but ultimately reduce the effectiveness of sleep as a whole. While people often use cannabis to initiate rest or reduce the stress that keeps them awake, the quality of the sleep they experience becomes compromised because the balance between stages is disturbed. One of the most noticeable changes is the suppression of REM sleep, which is where most vivid dreaming occurs. This stage plays a central role in integrating emotional experiences and in maintaining mental flexibility and creativity. Without sufficient REM, the brain does not complete these nightly housekeeping tasks, which can lead to irritability, reduced resilience to stress, and diminished cognitive sharpness. At the same time, marijuana often increases the proportion of deep slow-wave sleep, which gives the impression of heavier rest. While deep sleep is crucial for muscle recovery, hormone regulation, and immune support, it cannot fully compensate for the lack of REM. This imbalance creates a deceptive picture. People may feel like they are sleeping deeply because they are sedated and unaware of frequent disruptions, but the sleep they are experiencing is incomplete in its restorative function. Another issue with marijuana's impact on sleep architecture is the way tolerance develops. The more frequently a person uses cannabis, the more the body adapts, and the less effective the substance becomes at producing the desired effects. This adaptation pushes users to increase their dosage or choose stronger strains to achieve the same result. However, as the dosage escalates, the distortion of sleep stages often becomes worse. The cycles through light, deep, and REM sleep become irregular, and the overall rhythm of the night is disrupted. Instead of moving fluidly through 4 to 6 complete sleep cycles, the architecture becomes fragmented, leaving the sleeper vulnerable to waking up feeling unrested, groggy, or mentally clouded. These disruptions in sleep cycles are also reflected in the body's circadian rhythm, the internal clock that regulates not only sleep but also metabolism, hormone release, and temperature regulation. Chronic marijuana use can blunt the natural cues that signal when it is time to sleep or wake, leading to irregular schedules and difficulty maintaining consistent rest. For example, the suppression of melatonin, a hormone critical for sleep initiation, is sometimes observed in regular cannabis users. This means that even though marijuana may feel like it helps induce sleep, it can interfere with the body's natural ability to prepare for it on its own, weakening the circadian rhythm over time. When this system is disturbed, sleep becomes more fragmented and less efficient, further eroding overall health. As marijuana disrupts the balance and timing of sleep architecture, the consequences begin to manifest during waking hours. People may notice slower reaction times, impaired memory, difficulty focusing, and mood instability. These symptoms are subtle at first, but can accumulate into noticeable declines in daily performance. The restorative power of sleep is not just about quantity but about quality, and when that quality is undermined, no amount of extra hours in bed can make up for it. Over time, the brain and body both suffer from the absence of well-structured sleep cycles, leading to chronic fatigue, heightened stress responses, and vulnerability to illness. The promise of using marijuana as a sleep aid, therefore, is undercut by its tendency to unravel the very processes that make sleep such a vital tool for health and performance.